today in Huaishan, because my family came from that area of China. Now in Guangdong Wah, in Samjiao, we call it Huaishan. And then in Mandarin it's Taishan. So it depends on which dialect that you're hearing. Now understand that Chinese is written in the same way but pronounced in very different ways because of the disparate valleys and the geography of the area. So John graciously asked me to contribute to his book. I was really busy, and as usual, I was going to say, like, leave me alone, I'm too busy, I don't want to do it. However, having grown up across the bay in Joong Wah and realizing that my parents came from China, went through many occupations, and eventually opened up Joong Wah, and it provided me with who I am today and what I am today, and with the warmth of their hard work and the hard work of the workers. I want to share with you some of my experiences. So I'm going to start first of all with images, and then I will do some reading. This is a detail of an image that I used to make a work for a traveling show. It is the cookie sheet from the restaurant. And we baked a lot of Parker House rolls and what we call mian bao doi, and gong gao mian doi, which is gong gao mian bao, which is baking soda biscuits. And there's my mom standing, chopping away, and I wrote a poem to go with this. And I wrote the poem in English and in the Huaishan. This is the village of my father in Gunduhang. Before the communists took over, it was known as Gunduhang. And now it is known as Long On, which means happy dragon. And there's a beautiful valley, beautiful mountains in the valley, so the name comes from there. And the villagers dried the rice. You can see the rice in the forefront of the image. This is my father's house, the one with the blue and white plastic sack hanging in front, covering the door. And here is my family in 1943. And my parents were blessed with 6 girls and a boy. They weren't happy with their blessings until my brother came. And those of you who are women in Chinese families, you know what I'm talking about. So we opened our restaurant from 1943 to 1961. They worked 17 hours a day. You know, they went home to barely sleep, and before they barely closed their eyes, they were up at the restaurant again. And here is an image of my mother and a relative from China. This was Oakland, Chinatown in the probably in, let's see, I was going to Cal at that time, 1950s. You notice how ragged and tattered the awning, nothing was fixed. I mean, it was just really dilapidated. But we kept the inside of the restaurant clean. Here is 8th Street. And this is a picture of my mother-in-law, Sushi Wong, and her sister-in-law, Yukin Gu. And so Val, Gail, and Dana, and Steve, that's Mama, you know. She moved from Augusta, Georgia in 1949 and came into Chinatown. And she used to go to the cheapest place to buy the cheapest soy sauce. That's a Chinese trait, you know, like, we can't spend enough money. This is me and my brother Bill and my nephew Melvin. My brother Bill is William Wong, the writer, the journalist who used to write for the Tribune, and he was a news commentator for Jim Lehrer. He's now a freelance writer and has a website about the history of Oakland, Chinatown. And that's me with my permanent hair. And my brother-in-law's 1938 up Plymouth, and my niece Vicky is here. So Vicky, that's your dad's car. This is Vicky's father. Henry was a fantastic brother-in-law. My mother loved him because he came over to work for us, and she didn't have an older son. And Henry did whatever my mother wanted him to do. So he really won a lot of favor. And the man in the back is my brother-in-law, Richard. He's now 80, is he 86, 88? Yeah. And I didn't know him at that time. I didn't know that he eventually would marry my sister-in-law. So the restaurant was an incubator of love and marriage. This is a drawing that I did of the restaurant and my history of growing up in Oakland, Chinatown. The center point is the Chinese New Year dragon that came to bless our houses and our business during Chinese New Year. I did 500 drawings of dragons. I hid them under my bed, and then a few years later, I pulled them out. I hated most of them, so I threw them all away, and I saved this one. And it became the basis of the collage for my this picture that is hanging in my house today. And here I am. I was 16 years old. I took my tips and bought a lawn dress, and those of you of my era who knows what a lawn dress is, I mean, that was the way to be fashionable. And my job was to wipe the tables. But look at my right hand. When I drew my right hand, the hand looks really gnarled and old. And there's a reason that I have these kind of distortions in my work. I take my glasses off when I draw. I cannot see. And I drew these from the small little photographs. So here I was taking the photograph, literally putting my nose on top and sketching, and then I would put my glasses on, and then I would realize what I had done. So it was really a lot of fun to draw like that. But you get a sense of the interior of our restaurant. And I use one pencil to get this, because I wanted to get different values. And what I have as the wood behind me is a chocolate brown color to the booths. And here we are. So this is the complete piece that is traveling in a show now. And I want to read this poem to you. I'm going to come over here and read it because I can't see. I hope I don't block anybody's way. Okay. So in making the piece, can you hear me? In making the piece, I wrote this. I, Joong Wah, Great China. I, Joong Wah, Great China. Tangon Restaurant. Lun Hong In Phao. Oakland, Chinatown. Gi Giang Ba, Gi Giang Sim, Uncle Gi Giang, Auntie Gi Giang. Those are my parents' names. Hoi Gong La, start work now. Ga Fe, coffee. Min Bao Doi, Parker House rolls. Ping Wall pie, apple pie. Bao Wen Hun, Brat One Ton. Ki Hoi, wait on tables. Mo Hoi, wipe the tables. Fly Pon One, why? Wash the dishes. Fly Ga Fe Wu, wash the coffee urn. Hoi Gong La, start work now. Hoi Gong La, start work now. And so what I'll do now is finish up with a couple of reading of the excerpts from my book. From my chapter of the book. I was trying to take credit for the book. I'm old enough now where I'm sharing. I've learned how to share. I didn't learn how to share in kindergarten. I've learned how to share now that I'm 72. Okay. Oi, mo cha. Oi, mo cha. Oi, white forks. When I heard those words as a young child at my family's Oakland Chinatown restaurant, Joong Wah, Great China Restaurant, I ran hastily into the kitchen. Lo Wong Ba, our dishwasher, lifted a colander from the sink. Clouds of steam billowed. The scalding water dimpled his reddish pink hands. The colander was layered with crisscross forks, knives, spoons, and other utensils. I didn't answer Lo Wong Ba. We always worked together in silence, as if his spoken words would interfere with the task at hand. He was a quintessential Plan Doi, a bachelor who, like many other Chinese men in America, immigrated to the US alone, leaving their wives and family home in villages in China. In the dining area of Joong Wah, behind the salmon-colored Formica countertop, I wiped and stacked the wash utensils. I put forks on top of other forks. Sometimes the tines got caught, and other times I put spoons on top of spoons until they filled the segmented slot to the top. Once in a while, I ran back to the kitchen with a crust-laden utensil that needed to be washed again. Now I'm going to go to a description of what the restaurant looked like. Inside Joong Wah, the doors of Joong Wah were flanked by windows and walls. The walls were adorned with ornate and colorful Chinese bowls. Inside, the restaurant was appointed with dark wood booths on the left side and a long formica counter with seats diner style on the right side. Each booth had a round mirror with an ornate frame. At one time, my father installed a pinball machine to the left of his office window where players clanged and spun the pinball for hours. My father's minuscule office, a multi-use space, was on the left side of the restaurant near the staircase and the one oval table to serve larger groups of customers. There was a second story, which housed more tables for diners, a hallway that stored foods and led to the women's bathroom. We had a former banquet space that was closed off to store items we didn't use constantly. And then I want to describe to you some of the customers that we had at our restaurant. Who ate at Joong Wah? We served Chinatown residents and other customers who came from throughout Oakland. Quite often, single males, there were 6 sisters waiting on tables at different times, came to eat so they could chat with us. Oakland police officers came. They sat at the counter with their guns at the side. Their dark blue uniforms were a colorful contrast to the salmon color formica of the counter. Henry J. Kaiser, the American industrialist, whose corporate office was located in Oakland, was a regular customer. After his first wife had died, he continued to eat at our restaurant with the second wife, who was his first wife's nurse. A warlord from China came with his entourage. He was a Muslim who didn't eat meat. So when I spotted his rotund body ambling down the street, I ran to alert the cooks. We customized his wontons, preparing them with shrimp because as a Muslim, he didn't eat pork. That was a big deal for our family to have a customer with such notoriety. Lonely men, their faces etched with silence from the Salvation Army a block away on Webster Street, stayed all day. They had nowhere to go, and my parents did not make them leave. One of them once brought me a used crib and a doll, the only doll of my entire childhood. And I just want to finish up with, fast forward to 2009. I now am the grandmother of 3 adorable children. I'm a biased grandmother, you know. And my 2 older grandchildren are biracial. They're half Chinese and half Jewish. And my daughter and my son-in-law make a great effort to keep up the heritage of both sides. And so I'm weighing in on the Chinese side. And so we like to take them to Oakland Chinatown, which is very different from their Piedmont neighborhood. And so I want to finish by reading you this. On August 16, 2009, my husband Ed and I took our grandchildren, Ben and Sasha Wong Halpern, to Oakland Chinatown. I wanted Ben and Sasha to see where I grew up. We took them to the site of our house at 725 Harrison Street and also showed them my Chinese schools. When we arrived at 723 Webster Street, the location of Joong Wah, we peeked in. Sasha wanted to go in, so we did. I asked if we could take her upstairs to use the toilet. Just as we climbed the stairs, I turned around and pointed out the office to Ben. He wanted to know where my siblings and I typed our daily menu. The 4 of us reached the 2nd floor, and I explained to Ben and Sasha that we had many family parties in the now closed dining area there. It was in this space that I had drunk my father's Ngape whiskey. It all came back to me. Downstairs in the busy restaurant, I told Ben and Sasha to thank the woman for allowing us to go upstairs. In my rusty Cantonese, I told her that my family owned the restaurant from 1943 to 1961. She wanted to know the name, and I said, Joong Wah. And that's because I spoke in Samyup instead of Hoi Sang Wah. She asked if we had sold chassis valves. Not at all, I said.